Elwynn Forest is a very popular region of Azeroth due to hosting the city of Stormwind and being a major crossroads of human activity. From its lush forest and trickling rivers to the wildlife, both friendly and hostile, the forest is a land plenty have traveled through, but today we're going to take a deep exploration of Elwynn and look at all aspects of it. We'll take a look into the history of Elwynn Forest, the population centers, the wildlife and landscape, and the stories these lands have to tell. My name is Hope, and I'll be your guide through this episode of Documenting Azeroth. Elwynn Forest is, as the name implies, a dense temperate forest located toward the southern end of the Eastern Kingdoms. The forest is dotted with rivers and lakes, leading to a few large rivers and a mountain range that help enclose the forest to create a fantastic ecosystem for agriculture and logging. The major people that populate the region are humans, but as the Alliance has grown to more races and grown more integrated, more and more peoples of the Alliance have moved to Elwynn Forest. There are, of course, hostile forces as well that populate the forests, such as gnolls, murlocs, and orcs, but we'll discuss those more in depth later. Let's take a dive backward in time for some history of Elwynn Forest before taking a deeper look at the features of this region. Elwynn Forest was settled centuries before today by humans who traveled from the northern reaches of the Eastern Kingdoms. When they arrived, they found the lands were very fertile and began agriculture in the area. Over time, towns and villages rose up all over the surrounding area of what is today Elwynn, Westfall, Duskwood, and Redridge, and in time, Stormwind itself was built and the population thrived. The humans that lived in these lands far from their origins of the kingdoms up north developed their own culture and independent existence, living outside of the turmoil of kingdoms of the north. Elwynn was almost a paradise to those that lived there until the Dark Portal opened. When the Horde crossed the Dark Portal and set their sights on Stormwind, they ravaged the lands surrounding Stormwind, including Elwynn Forest. The lush forests were cut down and used as fuel for the Horde's war machine, and any town and village along their path was sacked and razed by the orcs looking for plunder. When the Alliance eventually reclaimed their destroyed lands, it took a lot of gold, resources, and manpower to rebuild what was once there. And since then, it is said that Stormwind and Elwynn have been able to recover to their former glory, so let's take a look at Elwynn today. Right in the center of the forest, on a perfect crossroads, is the town of Goldshire. It is a hub of a ton of activity in Elwynn Forest. It has roads that lead to Stormwind, Northshire Valley, Westfall, Redridge, and all those connecting to roads that lead far beyond. The Lion's Pride Inn hosts all sort of folk, some more unscrupulous than others. It is a common stop for anybody traveling to or from Stormwind and hailed as a legendary alehouse. Directly to the east of Goldshire is Crystal Lake, once a peaceful lake fueled by a river running from the mountains to the north, but today it is seeing a major infestation of murlocs who attack guards and other travelers, but the guards patrolling the area work their best to keep the murlocs at bay. As you travel along any paths in Elwynn Forest, you will always be surrounded by the dense forest and wildlife, which sprang back quickly after its destruction by the orcs. Wolves, boars, bears, they can all be seen along the path, but they usually don't bother anybody traveling on the main road. Further to the east of Goldshire is the Tower of Azora, a mage tower just off the road. And rumor says, according to the servants of this tower, the magic is so potent that it can mutate wildlife that they'll have to fight off, such as mutant butterflies. So be sure to keep your distance. If we venture north of the Tower of Azora, we'll find the Jasper Lode Mine, one of the 3 major mines in Elwynn Forest. It is infested by kobolds though, and they heavily guard the mine and plunder it for the metallic treasures within. They cannot go too deep though, as far within the cave is an infestation of mine spiders, and you can see all over their nest they have kobolds that have ventured too deep within that mine. From here, if we travel very far to the eastern side of the zone, we'll find the East Vale Logging Camp, another example of one of Elwynn's major exports, lumber. From all over the human lands, orders come in for lumber from these series of lumber mills, and with strict timelines, the humans working here have to work hard to get the job done in time. The camp is not without its dangers though, as all around it are bears and wolves that will attack lumberjacks on site. This leads to difficulties in completing orders, so periodically the wolves and bears will need to be fought back a bit. This is not the end of the dangers though, as any who venture too close to Stonecairn Lake will be met with a camp of murlocs known to eat people. The lake is surrounded by murlocs all along the east side of the lake, and then to the north and west sides of the lake are camps of gnolls. And just to add to the dangers, the island in the center with a monument to the men and women lost in the First War is inhabited by rogue wizards who will attack anyone on sight. And I think this is a great time to discuss another historical player in the region, the now dissolved Defias Brotherhood. This is all alleged, of course. I wouldn't want the Stormwind Guard to think I'd ever doubt them. After Stormwind and the surrounding lands were reclaimed by the Alliance, I mentioned lots of gold, resources, and manpower being required to rebuild. While all of that is true, the gold rarely saw its way into the hands of the workers. Stormwind was spending money it didn't have to rebuild in very extravagant ways, with major massive walls sculpted to perfection and promising to pay all the stonemaces and other workers who made it happen. But when the time to pay came, Stormwind didn't pay up, so under the banner of Elwynn Van Cleef, the Defias Brotherhood was formed with the goal of destroying Stormwind. Until the cataclysm happened, bandits of this gang would roam Elwynn Forest, pillaging where they could. But after the Defias dissolved, many of the areas once owned by Defias moved to being owned by just bandits and rogues, such as the rogue wizards on Stonecairn Island. Are these the same bandits that were once Defias, or are they new bandits? Who's to say? Anyway, back from that side tangent, let's run back south across the zone now. Directly south of the Eastvale logging camp is the Ridgepoint Tower. This tower is used by the Stormwind Guard to stay on the lookout for orcs or gnolls that are crossing from Redridge and undead that are crossing from Duskwood. There is a choke in the mountains here, and it is crucial it is defended. As we continue traveling down this southern river that splits the forests of Duskwood and Elwynn, we find the mouth of a river that has another murloc infestation. But right past this takes us to another example of one major resource that brings money into this land, a pumpkin patch. The lands of Elwynn Forest are very fertile, and this farm is just one of many in the zone and in the greater area of Stormwind's domain that helps to fuel the city. This one is unfortunately overrun by bandits, which is something pretty common in this forest as more and more people shift from Westfall to Elwynn. Continuing through the woods, we see many sheep, boars, bear, deer, and wolves as we move along the river. We also pass a few bandit camps, including Jared's Landing, which is a place used to smuggle stolen goods along the river. Passing this, we get to a couple more farms, the McClure Vineyard and the Stonefield Farm, two farms who are at odds with one another, but another great example of the industry here. Smack dab in the middle of these two, though, is another one of the major mines, the Fargo Deep Mine, and it is once again infested by kobolds that need to be removed. This is another example of how the Stormwind Guard in Elwynn Forest is very undermanned and in dire need of help, because they cannot do anything to take this important mine back. But as we continue along, we finally get to the western side of Elwynn Forest, the border with Westfall, and an area that belongs to camps of Riverpaw gnolls run by Hogger. Deep in the history of this region, there was a war between the gnolls and humans that the humans did win, but the gnolls were not completely eliminated. They are usually kept at bay by Stormwind's Guard, but as I said, the guard is undermanned, so these gnolls are starting to grow bolder and the camps are growing bigger, and they're attacking anyone that gets near. To the north of these camps is the Westbrook Garrison, where the Stormwind Guard will work out from to protect the border of Westfall, keep the roads safe. Due to manpower issues, as I said before, the guard in this garrison can't properly defend Elwynn Forest as it needs to. The gnolls are rising up, the murloc infestations are taking over, there are tons of bandits coming from Westfall, and there's nothing they can really do. If we work our way a bit further north from here towards Stormwind, we find some more wolves and bandits, and we find the Mirror Lake Orchard, another farm that has been taken over by bandits. And of course, next to it is Mirror Lake itself, which is fueled by the Thunder Falls and the Stormwind sewers. And finally, we have the major city of the Alliance, Stormwind. The massive walls and gates staring down over the surrounding area make it clear that this city is well fortified for anyone who wants to try and take it again. But Stormwind is for another day. Let's move further east to Northshire Valley. This area was a holy valley in times of peace, but since the First War ravaged it, it has only seen invasions and violence since then. Previously, the Defias Brotherhood was tormenting these lands, and as soon as they were taken care of, orcs moved in to take their place. This is also one of the main recruitment hubs for the Stormwind army, trying to look for folk who want to help defend their homeland. And with orcish incursions now burning down the farms in the area and shutting down the mine, they need all the help they can get. The main feature of the valley is Northshire Abbey, a large structure that's home to an order of clerics. They continue their operations despite the violence outside their walls, but I'm sure after years of all of this fighting, they'd like to see some peace in their valley. That covers a brief overview of the major territory of Elwynn Forest and notable locations, but there's of course more to discuss here. The natural barriers of this region allow for it to stay secure while also providing a great area for agriculture. To start, it has two major rivers lining the south and west sides. The southern river runs from waterfalls coming out of Red Ridge Mountains, and it splits the blighted Duskwood from the clean Elwynn. This river runs west and meets with a river flowing from the Thunder Falls west side, which flows south. Both of these rivers combine and they eventually flow out through Stranglethorn Vale and into the Great Sea. From the mountains north of Northshire Abbey, we have an absolutely monumental waterfall that runs down through Northshire Abbey and eventually terminates at Crystal Lake. The falls, while unnamed, are absolutely massive and are a sight to behold if you can make your way to them. All throughout these mountains, you'll find lots of little dotted houses and structures of people who just want to live off the grid and get away from it all. There's a sheep farm, there's some adventurers camping, there's a mysterious author, and loads of other people that live in these areas. Speaking of these mountains, they encircle the rest of the forest. To the north, the Black Rock Mountains lie, creating a great natural barrier from the orcs that live up there, other than small chokeholds they can find their way through to navigate. On the eastern side of the forest, the mountain range continues down to the Red Ridge Mountains, again creating a great choke to defend this forest from attacks by gnolls and orcs. But what are all of the threats to this land? It seems pretty secure. Being that this land contains Stormwind, all sorts of factions want to hurt the area and attempt to tackle the human ownership. Orcs from the Black Rock Mountains make their way down to assault the Northshire Valley, and they're always looking for other ways to make it deeper into the forest, such as through Red Ridge. There are also a large population of gnolls that are getting out of hand, as I said before. The Riverpaw gnolls in the southwest are one of the largest camps, but there's also a camp to the north of Stonecairn Lake that could mobilize to do damage to Elwynn Forest. Of course, there are bandits roaming all over the forest and all over major waterways, looking for anyone they can rob, and they are taking over farms. And murlocs are infesting multiple bodies of water in the zone, making them unsafe to be near. Red Ridge hosts even more orcs and gnolls, who are kept at bay by the towers guarding the major paths, but they're always something to look out for. To the west, Westfall has a lot of citizens who are very unhappy with Stormwind, so very disgruntled people also make their way over and continue to join these bandit camps. Duskwood to the south is home to monstrous spiders and undead horrors that have to be kept in check lest they make their way across these rivers to infest Elwynn. For now though, Elwynn isn't always in a state of war or terror, and it is kept safe by Stormwind's garrisons protecting the region as best they can. The average citizen living in Elwynn is safe and at peace, and while other human territories such as Westfall and Duskwood suffer, it can be said that Elwynn has recovered from its destruction during the First War. Elwynn Forest is a well-tread area for many folk of Azeroth, being home to Stormwind and a major crossroads of human territory. The natural defenses help to keep it safe for the average citizen, but danger is lurking for anyone who treads too far off the roads. Would I recommend a trip to Elwynn Forest? I would highly recommend taking a stroll through Elwynn Forest, visiting the Northshire Abbey, and grabbing a drink at the Lion's Pride Inn. Thank you for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed this so you can catch the next episode of Documenting Azeroth.